The Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. With your hosts, Joe Bond.
You're awful.
And A.J. Applegarth.
It's Sin Shu Chu. It's a mouthful.
All right, welcome to the Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. My name is Joe Bond, founder of FantasySixPack.net. With me, as usual, my co-host, A.J. Applegarth. What is up, man?
It's a long week. I'm ready for it to be over.
You got some vacation coming up, man, right?
Maybe. I don't know. We had some new findings that just happened this evening, so we'll see.
Oh,
nothing negative, health wise for anyone in the family. Well, my dog, she's kind of been on and off having some seizures, so she had one tonight, and I didn't realize that she was in the kitchen because we were eating dinner. So my daughter's sitting there like laughing, thinking it's something funny. It's like, what? No, that's not funny. So,
oh geez, sorry to hear, man. I did not know about that.
She's been on medicine. She's been doing pretty well. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, not to be a Debbie Downer. Let's start the show and on a better note here and talk about beer or other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get going, though, make sure you guys subscribe, follow us. We're on YouTube, Periscope. If you're listening, after the fact, it's iTunes, Spotify, you name it. So make sure you follow us, like us, subscribe, whatever it is on whatever channel you're listening to us. We appreciate the support. So big news tonight is NFL opt-out date passed by with not a lot of fanfare, honestly. It was pretty good news. Last week we talked about Damian Williams opting out. So I was kind of expecting a couple big bombs to drop, and they just didn't. At least fantasy-wise. I know we've got a lot of, defensive guys that have opted out. New England has a lot of guys, but this week, man, they extended it, and I was just worried. Especially, you heard those rumors where, they were going to work out the contract talk for the CBA and stuff like that, and just, get all that stuff settled. And they did earlier in the week, and then they extended it a few more days to give people time to think about it. And you heard people are waiting for that to make sure it is what they think it's going to be, and it's going to be good for them. And then just nothing. So, Josh Jackson opted out today. Okay. I kind of forgot he was playing. So
yeah, I thought he opted out 3 seasons ago, but okay. Welcome back.
Yeah. So good news there. The baseball side, we've still got a mess. The Cardinals, tested positive a bunch, and the Marlins are back playing, obviously smoking our Orioles, unfortunately. How we listen to the Marlins 3 times. Okay, we just swept the Rays.
Tampa Bay, and then now you can't even get runs. Although I did see Renato hit another bomb tonight, so see if Nunez can keep himself a little hot. The lone bright spot for the Orioles, I feel like, but I don't know. Baseball, as you've seen by my attendance to the closer chart, I have not been paying much attention this year so far.
It's been a rough season to follow, man. I'm not gonna lie. I pretty much got burnt out within the first couple of weeks. Barely been a couple of weeks. The first week when all the postponements happened, and then I had a slew of Orioles, I had a bunch of Orioles in my team because I just got a couple of their pitchers late on all my different teams. I had a bunch of Marlins, I had a bunch of Yankees, I had a bunch of Phillies, and I'm sitting here going, I've got Bryce Harper and those kind of guys on the Phillies. I can't drop them, right? I've got VR on the Marlins. I can't drop these guys, so I just sit here with postponements. They're not COVID IR guys, so I can't put them on the IR and pick somebody else up. I'm just sitting on PPDs for a week. So there's nothing. I should have expanded rosters 5 spots, thinking that was. I didn't realize that type of stuff was going to happen. I knew the COVID IR stuff was going to happen, so I expanded the IR slots. So I didn't think to expand rosters an extra 5 or 6 to make up for all the postponements that were going to happen. So we're in a Roto league in our fantasy 6-pack league, right? I looked at my my game tracker for getting to the max games. I'm -50 on pace for second base because VR was my only second baseman. And I'm like, well, what do I do about this? So I'll never catch up. I mean, it's not going to be -50 when it's all said and done, but like that's the pace I'm on right now because he didn't play but like 3 games as of yesterday. Yeah. So it's just like, it's just crazy. So hopefully things get better. You know, that seems like maybe some more teams are taking it more seriously. We'll see. Hopefully, the big thing is hopefully football can figure it out too and not have this totally blow up so in their face too. So, but yeah, let's get on to some more happy news and do our beer of the week. Beer. All right, so AJ, you go ahead and go first, man.
All right. Well, I'm dipping into another Kushwa brewing here, the situational awareness. It is their IPA, I believe, with New England IPA, double IPA, with Galaxy, Motueka, and Citra hops. Hopefully, I pronounced that right. So yeah, I had one of these the other day, and it was quite delicious. So decided I'd bring it back for the show.
Yeah. Kushwa makes some very nice brew. I am drinking my 4th of the 4-pack. I've saved this for a couple of weeks. Other half, Space Diamonds Double Dry Hopped Imperial IPA, 8.5%. It's got Galaxy, tons of Galaxy hops. It's malty, but man, it's smooth at the same time, man. I gave this a 4.75 out of 5 on Untapped. It's easily one of my favorite beers I've ever had. Like, I've tried a couple other half beers, and like my friends suggested them, and the place I went to had a bunch, you know, off and on, but they go quick. So I kept getting like the second rate other half beers, which are still good. They're still like 3 3/4, like 4, but they're like just standard IPAs at that point. Yeah. I got this one, and I was like, oh my God, like incredible. Now I know what all the rave is about. This brewery is good. It's up in New York. It's hard to find down here, unfortunately, but that Downtown Crown brewery place that you finally went to has a bunch of them. So they are solid. So, all right, man. So this week we are talking NFC West. It is our last 2020 preview. We're bringing on friend of the show, Geoff Lambert, founder of GoingFor2.com and host of the Armchair Fantasy Show. Geoff, what's up, man? You there?
Yeah, what's up, guys? How y'all doing?
Good.
Glad to be back on the show.
Yeah, man. Yes. Glad to have you back. It was a good time the last time, so we figured we'd do it again. So I see your lovely bar background there. I love it. Fits in with our theme. So we'll take it. So.
Disappointed I couldn't contribute to the beer of the week this week. Went to the fridge tonight and realized I drank my last beer last night on my show, so I'm drinking flavored water tonight. So
it's all good, man.
That's rule number 1. Don't run out of beer in a pandemic.
Yes.
No kidding. No kidding. So all right, so how we're gonna do this, Geoff, is we'll run through the positions. We'll do some ADP rundowns and then go through and just hit some hot topic questions. And that's pretty much it. But a little surprise, I don't send you this beforehand. I kind of like to surprise all the guests. Is we've got a question, just a generic football question, doesn't have to be fantasy related, your answer at least. And it's just about the division. So, last year, right, San Francisco, unbelievable turnaround. They went 4-12 the year before. Obviously, Jimmy G was hurt. Defense was trash. 13-3, made the Super Bowl. They've still got Seattle. They got up-and-coming Arizona. The Rams are always still sort of potent, but I think they're on the decline right now. I mean, are they still the number 1 seed coming out of that division in the NFC, or you thinking someone else can take it over?
Well, obviously being a fan, I think that we're the number 1 seed, but I do see that, I think that top to bottom, this is the best division in football. Because like you mentioned, I mean, we had Seattle. They took us toe-to-toe 2 games during the regular season down to the wire. Could have easily won those 2 games. They would have got the division instead of us. And the Rams, Super Bowl, just a few years ago, they were in Super Bowl, and they're still a good offense. And Arizona is sort of like the sleeper pick for everybody to kind of be the up-and-coming next team. So top to bottom, it's the best division in football, so it will be tough for us to repeat. And obviously now we got a first place schedule instead of a last place schedule like we had last year.
Right.
So that's going to hurt us a little bit as well. And I looked at our schedule and we got some tough matchups. We go to New Orleans again, which is a tough place to play. We won there last year, but 2 years in a row is going to be hard to do. So I think 49ers and Seahawks, I think, are going to be the two that are going to be fighting for the number one again. And I do think it'll come down to the wire. It'll come down to that last game like it did last year. And, I'm going to say my team still gets the division here, but I don't think it's going to be it won't be 13-3. I think it'll be more like a 11 or 12 win season because that division is just too good.
Yeah. Seattle's top notch. They've always got the veteran presence there, and there's Russell Wilson's hard to beat, man. The defense was a lot better last year than I think everybody thought it was going to be, and it'll probably be just as good this year. San Francisco's pretty nasty, but the offense isn't scary, man. Except for the run game, like the offense doesn't really scare you.
The funny thing is people think that, but if you look at last year, we were the second leading scoring team in the NFL. People don't realize that. Like we were right behind Baltimore, and we were a potent offense. We just weren't the one that, we wouldn't put up the flashy big numbers. We were just running the ball down everybody's throat, and that's putting up big numbers that way. And defense, of course, was scoring for us as well. And then on that Seattle defense, I mean, they went out and got Adams in that big trade, for the couple first round picks, and that kind of put them over the top a little bit to make me a little bit more nervous about this season. And I think they overpaid because we also were going after him. And I think if we would have got him, it would have put us sort of at a little bit as an edge. So they overpaid for that reason so that he wouldn't end up with us.
Yeah, that's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, looking at the schedule last year, I mean, you said it, they were potent. I mean, they had a ton of very high scoring games, and their margin was pretty good too. I mean, there's only a few games where they were within, like 3 to 7 points. So, you can do that all year long. You're going to win a lot of games, as long as you're on the better side of that. It's my Madden comment for the night. So
I think we had a stretch of 4 games, maybe 5. It was the worst stretch of games in NFL history. It was like Baltimore, Green Bay, New Orleans, and there's one more team thrown there.
Atlanta.
Well, and yeah, it was like as far as record goes, the worst stretch in NFL history for us. I mean, for any team for that matter.
Yeah, they're good, man. I like watching this offense. I think Jimmy G's a good game manager. So we'll talk about him here in a little bit. So why don't we kick off with the quarterbacks, Joe? Let's see what we got.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's do the ADP here for the quarterbacks, and leading the way is Kyler Murray at 3. I feel like this has changed in the last couple of weeks. I think we did the NFC East just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it is. And Dak was at 3, so I was kind of surprised to see Kyler jump back up there. Russell Wilson, a.k.a. Unlimited, at number 4. Jared Goff, 19, and then your boy Jimmy G at number 20. So right off the bat here, man, let's talk about Kyler Murray. And I can't think, like, I love the talent. I love the excitement behind this guy. I owned him last year in fantasy. I got him super late as like a QB2 just for the hell of it. I can't help but think that he's getting the Baker Mayfield treatment this year. And, as Baker got last year, and like all the hype in the world, and like it didn't happen. I mean, is Kyler different, or are we overreacting here?
I think Kyler is different, and I do think you're overreacting, and I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. One, I think the hype around the Browns was even more so than the Arizona Cardinals because they were like Super Bowl contenders, basically, is what they were putting them at, and I just think that pressure kind of got to them a little bit. Not to mention they changed coaches. I mean, they had the coach at the end of the year was like the interim coach or whatever, but they had a new coach, new offense. It didn't work out. It wasn't a very good offense. Kyler's going from the same system he was in last year, so there's no reason why I would think it'd be too much different. Now he's got DeAndre Hopkins, a sure stud, number 1 receiver there, and I do think his legs helps him as well. I mean, he's going to get yards on his legs, gives him a solid floor just to begin with, and Baker doesn't really do that. He has legs to get out of the pocket and make nice throws outside the pocket, but he's not going to run that ball as much as Kyler Murray is. So you get that as well. So. And I just don't think the pressure is there for Kyler Murray. I mean, you don't see Kyler Murray in a 400 commercials like you did Baker Mayfield. They're not predicting the Cardinals to be a Super Bowl contender. No one even thinks they can, they might get third in the division because of the division that they're in. They're just in a tough division. So they don't have that same hype, that same pressure. So they can come out and just, be a sort of the upset kind of team where they get those victories where you don't expect them to get those victories.
Yeah, I'm not buying into these comparisons here. I think they're just different quarterbacks altogether. Geoff, you hit it on the head there. I mean, Baker's not much of a running threat as you're going to get with Kyler. I mean, he can run the ball, sure, but it's not really going to be his go-to if the line folds and he's got a ton of linebackers coming his way. I would say Baker has more weapons, but I mean, now that you got D-Hop there, it's hard to say that is really the case anymore. But I like both of them. I think we'll see what happens. And I don't buy the comparison though. So Joe, you have any input on this?
I mean, look, I like him. I'm not taking him at number 3 as the third quarterback. I've got him down around 5-6. I don't have my rankings pulled up right now, unfortunately. I'm trying to pull them up right now, but it's one of those. The legs are going to save him and give him fantasy value more often than not, I think, and so that's going to help his floor. But is he going to be a top 5 quarterback? I don't know. He's going to have some real huge weeks. I know that for sure.
Yeah, I think that's going to be his thing there is consistency. And even last year, I think he ended up QB7, I think, last year in most leagues. And it wasn't that he was consistent all year long as he had those big games. Then he had games where he didn't really show up at all. So, look at the year at numbers, like, oh, he's QB7. He was really good last year. But really, if you owned him, you're like, no, a few games he pretty much killed me because he didn't show up in those games. So that's, I think if he can get that consistency down, he'll be a really good quarterback going forward. And I pulled up my rankings. I actually have him at 4. I have him behind Dak Prescott. Actually, you mentioned him earlier, so I have him sitting at 4 right now for redraft.
All right. Well, speaking of rankings, I feel like you got to be dropping Mr. Russell Wilson here because of that ridiculous video. I mean, am I right? All right. He's flying down your rankings now.
Yes.
QB 47. Just kidding. You can't drop him because of, off the field videography. But I mean, when you look at Wilson here, this is one of the guys who's been one of the most consistent quarterbacks year after year after year. And, he's been to Super Bowls. He gets his team where it needs to be to succeed. But it always seems like we have these excuses on why we think that he's not going to do it every year. I mean, you had the reduced rushing, then you don't have enough passing attempts and touchdowns. I mean, the list goes on for these excuses, but he's passing more, running less, but he still performs, every year. So I guess people are believing in him, but do you?
Yeah, I actually never stopped believing in him. I wasn't one of those people that were like, Russell Wilson's going to be running less, so you want to drop him in your rankings. I was always, he's one of the most, not only the most consistent, but one of the most efficient quarterbacks, in the NFL. People think of him as a running quarterback, but he's not. I mean, he's more of he wants to pass the ball down the field. His first thought isn't to run the ball. It's to look down the field and buy time and then find that big play down the field. Yep. And I think, coming into last year, the big thing was that he was too efficient the year before. Like, oh, he can't maintain that. I think you looked at him and Tyler Lockett as far as their passer rating. They had a perfect passer rating whenever he targeted Tyler Lockett, which has never happened in NFL history. People are like, oh, that can't happen again. He didn't quite do it again last year, but he came pretty darn close to doing it again with Tyler Lockett last year. So at some point, you got to be, all right, well, he can keep doing it because he has kept doing it. And I do think that this year will be the same thing. I think he's got more weapons now. I think Metcalf takes the next step. Lockett will come back and be healthy. He's got a good stable of running backs with Chris Carson, Rashad Penny, and the guy they drafted this year. I can't think of his name right now. They got some pieces there. So they even got, a new tight end now. They still have Disley coming back if he can come back healthy. So that offense is going to be good enough to get Russell Wilson to be consistent one more year.
Yeah, I love Wilson. He's definitely in like my top 5 quarterback range, easily. I mean, I was kind of one of those guys, I'm not going to lie, like early in his career when, he was having 600 and then he had that like almost 850-yard rushing year. But like, he was getting rushing touchdowns, getting all the yards, but like the passing volume wasn't there. But then we saw the rushing yards start to drop, and you're like, oh no, like, well, if he can't keep that up, is he going to be able to pass? And is this offense going to? It wasn't that could he do it? It was like, is the offense going to allow him? Is Pete Carroll building that offense to where he's going to be able to allow or trust Russell Wilson to pass as much as he needs to keep his fantasy value up? And so I did discount him a little bit in the beginning. I was wrong, obviously, because he is proving us now that he can do it. He's never going to be a 4,800-yard, 5,000-yard, type passer. But you're right. Efficiency is key for him. He's going to get a ton of touchdowns because his completion percentage is high, and he can still scramble out of the pocket enough to not make mistakes. And that's key. Like, he's not going to ruin the drive because he can't move with his legs. I think when that aspect of his game dies, I think we're going to see Russell Wilson go away. But until then, I'm all in on him.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting stat too. If you look at his receivers, so one thing you look at when you look at receivers is end zone targets. How many times they had targeted in the end zone? Tyler Lockett and Metcalf both in the top 5. Like, he's throwing the ball into the end zone, so you can't argue with that. He's gonna get touchdowns. I mean, you look at, he had 34 in 17, he had 35 in 2018, he had 31 last year. I mean, and he's not throwing the ball, like you said, as much as these other quarterbacks are, and the touchdown rate is ridiculous.
Yeah, you'd say with most guys, like, he couldn't keep that rate up. They're not going to keep that rate up. Like, Matt Ryan's a huge example. We've talked about him. Like, he's had those like peak years where he goes way up in his touchdown rate, and then the next year it just drops because that's the natural regression of what it is. But he's never peaked at that like 9-10 range like some of those guys. But he's gone to like 8, but then it drops like 6. That's not a huge killer.
Yep,
it's just not. He's had one bad year where it was like 3.8.
Yep.
So,
yeah. Efficiency is key, and consistency is key for fantasy football purposes. So I like Russ.
Yeah, so moving on here to the Rams, we've got Jared Goff. A couple of years ago, amazing. That offense was just unstoppable. McVay comes in and just shocks the world with that offense. Goff, was supposed to be this big bust, and it ends up being like a near MVP candidate. It was crazy. He threw for 32 passing TDs that year, 4,600 yards. Last year, he threw for 4,600 yards, 22 touchdowns. A little more interceptions, like 3 or 4 more interceptions, so not drastically different. But the offense just wasn't as efficient, wasn't as explosive. I mean, maybe it was the Todd Gurley effect of him not being fully healthy. The offensive line wasn't quite as good. Lots of reasons why. But he's not going to have Cooks this year, and he definitely doesn't have Gurley this year. So, I mean, what are we feeling for Goff in 2020?
I think it's going to be a bounce back season, and I think a lot has to do with the running back they drafted this year, Cam Akers. I do think he's not Todd Gurley. Don't get me wrong, but he can do the same things that Todd Gurley can do or used to do in this offense. The big thing that from the year that he had that really good season until last year is Todd Gurley didn't get a lot of targets last year. I think he had 81 or 85, I think, in 2018.
49.
Yeah, down to 49. Yep. Those are easy, efficient passes that resulted in touchdowns that he wasn't getting last year because he wasn't targeting Todd Gurley at all really. And when you're throwing the ball down the field to those receivers, running 3 wide sets, sometimes 4 wide sets, and just chucking the ball over the field, you're gonna throw interceptions, and they weren't scoring as much because that offensive line was as good as it was in the year in the past. I do think Cam Akers kind of fills that gap of what Todd Gurley gave to them. He's a great receiver out of the backfield. Offensive line's not great, but it wasn't great at Florida State either, and he still managed to put some good numbers up. So I do think that Cam Akers adds an element to this offense that they were missing, and I do think they go back to being one of the top offenses in the league. And I think you see, Goff, maybe not quite the year he had 2 years ago, but I do think he's going to be much better than he was last year.
Yeah, Goff's interesting for me. I I don't have him as a really high ranked guy, but he is someone, if he falls to me in the right spot, and I've got plenty of other depth, I'm all for taking him because I do like his upside. And I think with Gurley not there, it does open him up a little bit more, and it could lead to more passing in this offense. The touchdowns, dropping down by 10. Yeah, touchdowns ebb and flow every year with these guys. I mean, unless you're Russell Wilson and you're just going 30, 30, 30, 30. But Goff's not quite Russell Wilson either. So, I think that he's got a good skill set. He's got a good offense. And if they could just somehow find a way to get some help on that offensive line, it would do wonders for him.
Yep.
So
I think the screen game with Akers will help that off the line as well, which is something they didn't really do much of last year was run that screen game with Gurley because he just didn't have the lateral movement that he would have the previous year.
Yeah,
I think Goff in a one QB redraft league is hashtag late round quarterback because I do think he's going to be that. He's kind of in that Matt Stafford range where like he always went late but always ended up in the top 12 or right near the top 12. I think Goff can be that same kind of quarterback where no one loves him, but if you're the guy that drafts quarterbacks late and stacks a lot of talent in front of him, I think you can get Goff at a pretty cheap rate and he's going to put up some good numbers. I mean, he still had, like you said, 4,600 yards, last year as he did the year before.
It's identical. It was crazy when I looked at it.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, he threw the ball
touchdowns,
626 times too. So I mean, they're chucking the ball over the field still. So it's just a touchdown that went down.
Well, and a big part of that was Woods. He just had nothing last year, and he was such a force 2 years ago. So,
Cooks was hurt, and Gurley was out. So, the offense could be totally different for him this year. And he's not going to be Goff is never going to be the guy who's going to lead the team. He's not going to be the reason why they're good. I mean, let's be honest. He's gonna be the reason why they don't completely suck. Let's put it that way. He's gonna be all right. He's gonna be able to he's gonna make do with the weapons that he has, and so he needs his weapons to perform. I do have him ranked pretty low. I'm probably not going after him in any league, but I mean, I'm not totally discounting a bounce back, but I'm not counting on it either. I just don't believe in him that much. And the offensive line, huh?
Where you have him ranked? I'm just curious.
Right now, I've got him 21. Although I'm probably going to slide Burrow below him at this point with the whole no off season and no preseason. I'm gonna discount the rookies a little bit. I guess Burrow was only 1 or 2 ahead of him anyway.
I'm pretty high on him. I guess I got him at 15 actually. So I'm just outside the top 12.
I mean, you're looking at my 15 to 21 range. I'm looking at Daniel Jones, Cam Newton, Tannehill, Minshew, Mayfield, Goff. I mean, they're all kind of the same. I could flip a 6 kind of sided dice right there and just be whatever. I'll take whichever one at that point. So it's like a QB2, sure.
All right, well, let's put the D&D on hold for a minute and finish out here going back to Mr. Jimmy G. Obviously, we already talked about San Fran being a real run-heavy, run-first offense. I mean, do you really see Jimmy G as someone that you would want to own, or is he more of a streamer? Or would you trust him as a streamer at this point? He does have some nice matchups against the NFC East, Arizona, Miami. I mean, what are you looking at for Jimmy this year?
I do think he's definitely a streamer, but I don't think Arizona and Miami are the teams I'm streaming him against, only because we can run the ball against those teams and he won't pass the ball. I think you're streaming him against the Saints, where they're going to have to put up points and they're going to have to score. And I think that's where Jimmy G gets his, could be a streaming worthy candidate. So, but to draft him to be your starter or even to be a backup, I don't think he's worth it. I think you can stream him for sure. And then, there is a possibility that they have 4 or 5 running backs there. So they're set there. So, but I do think that Shanahan, somewhere in the back of his mind, he wants to pass the ball. I mean, we saw it with Matt Ryan. We saw it when he was in Washington. We saw it in the second half Super Bowl last year where he just forgot to run the ball. So I do think there's going to be a time you're going to open up the Jimmy G, floodgates and let him throw the ball all over the field. I don't think it's this year, though. I think they run the ball, play good defense again this year. Maybe in the next year after that, they'll give him a little bit more free reign if he can kind of make it through the season.
Yeah, so. I'm with you, man. It's going to be hard to trust Jimmy G in a lot of matchups just because they're going to run the ball so much. So, like, it's going to have to be, like, a DFS type play where you need to save money on your quarterback.
Yep.
And that's pretty much it. Like, even in, like, a redraft league where I could possibly stream quarterbacks, it's going to be hard to play him over other guys who are probably going to be available for me. So
he's the quarterback you stream when your team is really good and your quarterback's on a bye and you need someone just to not hurt you.
Yeah,
don't get negative points and we'll be good. And I think he's that quarterback that will do that for you.
Yeah, just about. So, yeah, good call on that one. So, all right, let's move over here to the running backs. We got Kenyan Drake at 11, Chris Carson at 16, Raheem Mostert at 26, Cam Akers at 30, Darrell Henderson at 41, Tevin Coleman 42, Chase Edmonds 50, Rashad Penny at 52, Carlos Hyde 64, Malcolm Brown 65. So start here again with Arizona. They're the most interesting team in this division, in my opinion, when it comes to the offense. So Kenyan Drake, the dude finished running back 4 the last 8 weeks of the season. Absolutely came out of nowhere. Obviously, he got traded, but nobody saw that coming. Nobody. So if you happen to have Drake or pick him up or whatever it is, you struck gold, and you lucky bastard. So anyway, but honestly, there's a lot of questions, and you see it around Twitter and whatever else you're having conversations. Like, can he do it for a full 16 weeks? I mean, do you believe that he can, and especially with this high flying offense, that his ADP is worth it at 11? Or is it still too rich or too low? Like, what do you think?
So I am buying the hype. I do think Drake is going to be that good and that he can do 16 games. However, the ADP of 11 is too high. There's just too many running backs there that I like more than Drake. If I could get like a Joe Mixon at the end of that first round and then, I'd pick 11 and then come back and get Drake in the second round, or even if Drake slips a little bit, guys that don't think that he can do it again, and you can get him in the middle of the second, end of the second, I think that's where I'd rather have him, because there is too many good running backs in that first round that I'd rather take one of the guys that I know is going to be good for a full season, like Nick Chubb or Joe Mixon, whereas Drake is more of a mid-second round pick for me. However, I do think that, he is the real deal. I saw him in his first game after he got traded playing my 49ers. Nobody bought into him. Everyone was like, oh, he's not going to do good. Don't start him. He came out and he killed us in that game. And everybody's like, oh, man, who's this guy, Kenyan Drake? All of a sudden, he just lit us up. And it was, he did it again, I think, a few games later, too.
Yeah.
He did the same thing to us again. So it wasn't
like incredible what he did, dude.
Yeah. Especially when you consider that they had David Johnson, who couldn't do what Drake was doing. So, like, what was Johnson doing wrong? Is Johnson really just washed up, or, but Drake did what he couldn't do.
Yeah, I mean, that just speaks volumes itself, because San Fran was so good against the run last year, and Drake just bucked that trend right out the window real quick.
Yep.
And it could have partially been because they weren't used to seeing him. He was a new face and trying to prove himself on this team after the trade. So,
yep.
Who knows? But moving on to back up to the Seattle Sound. Different team. Sorry. Chris Carson. What's that? Yes, the Kraken. Sorry. I'm going straight from beer to rum tonight, guys. So it's going to get a little hectic real quick.
The new NHL team, man. Kraken. Love it.
Yeah. All right, Chris Carson. This guy finished running back 10 over the first 15 weeks. But, then he's has the hip injury come up, cuts the season short. I mean, are we in the right mindset to be discounting him because of this injury? Or should he be drafted higher than where he's going? I mean, shit. In some of the SFB drafts, he was going as late as the 6th round. Granted, that's a super flex, premium tight end scoring, but still, I feel like 6 is a little far out for Carson with that production.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and I hope that everybody is discounting him because I'm buying him anywhere that I can, especially if I'm getting him in the 6th round for sure. Because Pete Carroll's shown it before. He's a one running back kind of guy. I think we've kind of tried to put the Rashad Penny in there if they're going to do a committee. We've tried to do different guys through their career, and it always tends to be one guy. And Chris Carson is that one guy right now. And it's funny that we kind of give him that injury-prone label, but I mean he's played 14 games in 2008. He played 15 games last year. It's not really injury-prone. If that's injury-prone, then every running back in the NFL right now is injury-prone because they don't always, almost never play a full 16 games. So I think the bigger issue for Carson is ball security. He had that stretch last year where he had a couple fumbles in a row, and that kind of hurt him a little bit. So I think if he can get that fixed. I think Carson is definitely in the RB1, category as far as the top 12 guys. So if I can give him a 6th round, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, dude. So I wrote the notes down this week, and he went 6th round in my Scott Fishbowl league. Now I went 3 running backs. I went Lamar and then 2 running backs, and then I forget exactly what I went, but I ended up fading running back in those 5th, 6th rounds, and I all of a sudden well, not 6th round I did, but in the 5th round I was just oh, I don't want a running back, and then let it pass. I needed a receiver. It's coming back, and I'm going, holy crap! Chris Carson's still sitting there. 2 picks before me, the guy who went 4 receivers and a quarterback goes, oh, Chris Carson, and I'm like, I texted the guy, I'm like, you are so lucky, dude. He's like, yeah, I know. I would have never guessed Carson would have fallen to me there. And I'm like, you're so freaking lucky. You go 0 running back in a super flex league, and that's who you get as your RB1. You actually got an RB1 in round 6.
Yeah.
Total garbage. I don't know why my league let that happen, but they did. But in other leagues, I saw him go 5. 4 was the earliest. I think our producer, Jeff, he got him in round 3. He took me the very end around he had the 12, so he took him in the end around 3, knowing he wasn't going to come back. Yep. Smart, because that's exactly what he needed to do to get somebody like him. I'm with you, man. The only worry I have is it seemed at the very end, right before Penny got hurt, is they were trying to get Penny more involved, and Penny was producing big time. They it was hurting Carson this couple weeks. Carson was still performing well, but Penny's probably
hurt him. Yeah, it was
but Penny's likely not going to be healthy to start the year. He's going to start the year at the pub, and who knows? They brought in Carlos Hyde. I'm not worried about Carlos Hyde. So if Carson is healthy to start the year, which it sounds like he's going to be, I'm all in on this guy. You can get him in round 3 easily in redraft leagues right now. So go for it, guys. So moving over here to your San Francisco 49ers, as we've kind of mentioned before, this backfield is a 4-headed monster potentially. We've got Mostert, we've got Coleman, we've got Wilson, and then possibly McKinnon coming back from injury. It's kind of a muddled mess, and it has been for years, and you really never know who to start. But it seems like most people in the industry and across fantasy football in general are buying in on Mostert. And he did well last year, and he demanded the trade. They signed him. It didn't seem like he got exactly what he wanted. I thought he'd get a lot more for demanding a trade, but whatever. Are you sure enough on Mostert, some of the rest of these guys are, it seems like, to buy him where he's going?
So last year coming into the season, it was kind of the same talk. It was Tevin Coleman, it was Jerick McKinnon before he got hurt, and it was Breida. It was those 3 guys. And coming into last year, I was saying buy the cheapest guy, who at the time was Breida. No one was talking about Breida. Right. Turns out I should have gone even cheaper and gotten Mostert, but I had the right philosophy, just the wrong running back. And that's what I'm going to say this year as well. I think get the cheapest guy, and I think right now it's Jeff Wilson Jr. I think Tevin Coleman and Mostert, where they're going, is a little bit too rich for my blood because it will be a 3-headed monster. It always has been. And if you look last year, I think it might have been week 1 and week 2 when Tevin Coleman had gotten hurt. They had Jeff Wilson Jr. come in. He was their goal line back. I think he had 4 downs in 2 games. So I think this year, Breida's now gone, obviously. McKinnon, I'm putting no faith in McKinnon at all. I think, he hasn't played since, I think, 2018, a playoff game. So,
Don't tell me that.
Almost 3 years he's gone. And he still, I think, last I heard, he still can't cut. So we're a month away from the season. If you can't cut, I'm not putting any faith in McKinnon whatsoever. So the three-headed monster is going to be Mostert, Tevin Coleman, and Jeff Wilson Jr. And I think Jeff Wilson Jr. is actually going to, eventually overtake Tevin Coleman, because I didn't see much from him last year at all. I saw him being very tentative. He wasn't hitting the hole the way he had in the past. He was getting those happy feet in the backfield. Whereas Jeff Wilson Jr., when he came into that, those couple of games there, I mean, he was like, there's the hole, I'm hitting it. If anybody's in my way, I'm taking them with me. And that's kind of how he runs the ball. And I think Jeff Wilson Jr. will end up being the second best running back on that team. And where you're getting him right now is almost free. So I'm saying once again, buy the cheap guy this year. Get Jeff Wilson Jr.
Yeah. Yeah, you're making me regret my 18th round pick in Razzball. I don't know if you're in that. It's the best ball format or better ball format, because they actually have like weekly waivers, but $10 fab. That's it. So you get like max of 10 pickups. McKinnon's running around like running backs flew, man. Like I couldn't get anybody good. Thankfully, I went running back heavy early, but McKinnon, I was like, I just need a sixth guy. And I took McKinnon in the 18th. Like, maybe if he comes back, whatever. Like, I figure, he's not going to be my starter week 1, week 2 anyway. But if he can come back and do anything, who knows? Maybe he's the cheap guy you wanted. I just wanted a piece of the San Francisco running back game. But Jeff Wilson, I just realized I didn't get drafted. So maybe I'll just make that swap real quick in week 1. Get $2 on Jeff Wilson and get him.
There you go.
We'll see what happens.
Do that. All right, so let's close out the running backs here. We kind of already delved into Cam Akers quite a bit when we were talking about Goff, but the point I want to bring up here is that he was kind of surprisingly drafted ahead of J.K. Dobbins. Very talented running back, but the big question is, whether or not this is going to be Akers' backfield. Or will it be Henderson's backfield? Or is Malcolm Brown going to split the carries enough? I mean, they're kind of their own three-headed, unproven monster over there. So what do you think about Akers taking the main lead?
I think it's Akers' backfield. I think maybe with the no preseason, it may not be week 1 Akers' backfield, but by week 4, week 5, it's Akers' backfield. I mean, you look at their stats last year. Malcolm Brown had 69 carries, 3.7 yards per carry. That's not really screaming like, oh, we got to get this guy the ball. Same thing with Darrell Henderson. I mean, he was even worse. I think he was 3.7 or 3.8 yards per carry as well. They both only had like 6 targets, so they're not involved in the passing game at all. Malcolm Brown had 5 touchdowns. That's really what he got his fancy value from. I think Cam Akers comes in. He gets the targets that Gurley didn't get last year. I think he can get those 200 plus carries easily. And I do think that he is obviously the more exciting player, and they're going to realize right away that he needs to get the ball more, the ball in his hands more than Gurley did last year.
Yeah, I totally agree here. Like, and I said it right after the draft. I'm like, Jonathan Taylor. Before the Damon Williams opt-out, even CEH and Dobbins and Swift, they're the more talented running backs. Don't get me wrong. But their landing spots for 2020 were worse than Cam Akers.
Yep.
I'd put money down that Cam Akers is the running back 1, the number 1 rookie running back this year for fantasy football. Ooh. Because of his landing spot.
Yeah.
But now the CEH is gonna have the gig, and I'm not making that bet anymore, guys. Yeah. Sorry, you're off the table. It's been canceled. Vegas pulled it. So
opted out on my bet.
I love the landing spot for him. I mean, we've seen what McVay has done with talented running backs, and like you alluded to in the early show, like he ran behind a garbage offensive line at Florida State, and he still produced. The line in LA isn't great, but it's better than what he had there.
Yep.
So
I don't watch much college football, but I was reading up on Cam Akers when I was doing my draft scouting, and they said not only was it a bad offensive line, it was historically bad. Like it was just terrible.
It was atrocious, dude. I mean, the Florida State was like one of the favorites to go into the year. Obviously, they always are, it seems like, but like week 1 to week 2, they got absolutely trashed, and people realized quickly their offensive line couldn't stop anybody. So they were like, okay, you guys are unranked. Bye. Yeah. I mean, so it's probably me. I'm not a Florida State fan, so sorry, guys. Not rooting for you, but let's move on here to the wide receivers. Long list of guys here because there's one at the very end I wanted to, get brought in here that I think is interesting. Starts off here up top with DeAndre Hopkins, number 4, Cooper Kupp 13, Tyler Lockett 20, DJ Metcalf 22, Robert Woods 26. Deebo Samuel 29, which kind of surprised me. It's still up that high. Christian Kirk at 40, Larry Fitzgerald at 60, Brandon Ayuk at 67, Andy Isabella 85, Josh Reynolds 86, and the guy who I think is fairly interesting, Jalen Hurd 95. Start off here again, Arizona. We're just gonna keep the trend going here. Hopkins obviously leads the group, as he should. He's been a monster his entire career. In the last 3 years with Watson over in Houston has been amazing. But now he moved to Arizona, has a second-year quarterback, as we mentioned, Kyler Murray. Any worry that he's not going to be able to return that kind of ADP, or are you still all in on him?
I think that his ADP has slipped enough that I'm definitely all in on him. I don't think he gets the 145 plus targets that he was seeing before. But I do think that they'll be very efficient targets. I mean, the only thing that stopped D-Hop his entire career was Brock Osweiler. I mean, he's the only one that was able to kill DeAndre Hopkins. I think that, that's Kyler Murray is obviously much better than that quarterback. And, Deshaun Watson was good for D-Hop as well. And I think Kyler Murray will be, more efficient this year. Their big thing last year was they weren't good in the red zone. They moved the ball down the field and then couldn't score in the end zone. And I think D-Hop brings that extra element there where they can get the ball into the end zone. And D-Hop will maybe not get as much targets, maybe not get as much yards, but I do think his touchdowns can go up a little bit. And I'm buying Hopkins because I think he's what'd you say he was as ADP?
So ADP according to Fantasy Pros is 4.
I've seen him go later than that. I mean,
yeah, me too. I've seen him go way later than that. So I was actually surprised to see it at 4.
Yeah, I've actually gotten him in a few of my leagues in mid-second round, and he's like wide receiver 6 or 7, even 8 possibly. And I think that's perfect where I'm going to buy him at because I do think he's still going to be a stud there in Arizona.
Yeah, I like D-Hop definitely. If he comes back around to me in the second, I'm all over trying to jump on him then. Dude's too talented, and I think Murray and him are just going to click, real quick. And it's going to be like him and Watson, never really went away. It'll be very similar in my mind. So, all right, moving back into the Rams here. Now we're talking about no Gurleys, 1 Kupp, and some Woods. So you've got, Stop it. I don't know. That was a team name that people were putting up there, and it just whatever. So Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. If you look at their ECR rankings, they're right on top of each other with Woods getting the slight edge 16-17. But ADP, it's completely different. And Kupp is ahead of Woods by, twice as many spots, 13-26. I mean, what gives here? Why is there such a discrepancy? And which side are you falling on more, the ECR or the ADP?
Yeah, so it's funny because we actually last night on my show we did an all wide receiver show. It was just all at receivers, and this is one of the questions that I brought up too. Is I think Cooper Kupp ended up last year as the number 4 receiver overall. I think that in PPR leagues at least he was number 4, number 5, depending on how your scoring is done, and he didn't make the top 12 in the rankings that we did on our podcast. And I'm like, how is he not a top 12 receiver when he was top 4 last year? And it's crazy how they're just discounting this guy, but. In the drafts, I think he's still going pretty high because he is Goff's go-to, and he's the guy that he looks for, in the red zone, in the end zone, and I think that's where Kupp kind of gets his value from. He's not going to be that flashy guy. He's not going to get you those ceiling games of week winning games, but he's going to be consistent. I think my guest last night called him Steady Eddie. He's just going to be consistent the entire year, and you want that in fantasy. You want to have consistency. You don't want to have to worry about the big spike game is great, but those games when they don't do anything at all, that kills you. Whereas Cooper Kupp is just going to be steady. And as long as Goff's the quarterback, he's going to get his targets. And I think he'll get those red zone targets as well. So I'm buying Kupp anywhere I can, especially with how late he's been going in some of my drafts. Is give me Cooper Kupp for sure.
Yeah. Joe, what do you think?
I'm all over Woods, man. my problem with Cook. My problem with Cup is that, like, man, he had some disappearing acts last year, dude. And I get it that was disappointed. People thought it was going to be much better, but I mean, if Cup hadn't scored 10 touchdowns, we're talking a pretty mediocre year from him. Like, except for the first 8 weeks, the second half of the season, if he hadn't scored 5 touchdowns, it would have been bad news, man.
Yeah.
You're talking probably like wide receiver 60 or worse at that point without those touchdowns, with like a normal amount of touchdowns, so 2 or 3. The first half of the year carried him as far as production wise with yards and catches. We're talking 9, 12, 15, 17, 10 targets, and nobody saw it coming because he was coming off the injury, right? And fair game, man. That was a legit excuse. Nobody saw that coming. But then it's just his body got tired or something, and it just fell off to where Woods, it seemed like he was good, but he was getting unlucky in the end zone department.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking the regression is going the opposite way for them this year, which is why I have them flipped. I actually have Woods 12 and Cup 23. So it's completely flipped with the ADP for me in my rankings with them. I'm buying all in on Woods this year, and him being the better touchdown target this year and still producing like he does in the air, especially without Cook there for the entire year.
Yeah, I'm exactly the opposite as you. I have Cup at 50, and I got Woods at 21. So
we'll see. It's all over the place with these guys, man.
And it's just like last year too. I mean, last year was 3 guys. You know, Brandon Cooks in there. I mean, these guys are going back to back to back in some drafts.
I always had Cooks late. I don't know. I never. Not that I thought that the injuries and the concussions were coming for him, but I couldn't buy. I have never bought into Cooks. I know his end of the year game has always been decent, but he's just one of those guys where he just has 3 or 4 blow up games, and then the rest is okay, yeah. What else are you doing with me? Thanks, Amari Cooper. I gotta get my Amari jab somehow, right?
Of course. All right. So what do we got next here, Joe? Seattle.
Yeah. So, just like LA, we got 2 guys who are leading the show here. And again, the ADPs and ranks are super close. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. I mean, just cut to the chase here. You preferring Lockett or Metcalf here?
It's Metcalf for me. I think we saw the second half of last year. I know Lockett was hurt, so that's kind of a little bit of a misleading. But I do think Metcalf, as a rookie, I think I said earlier he was top 5 in end zone targets, which is pretty good for a rookie. But he didn't convert a lot of them, which is the issue. But I do think that this year that regression goes up. I think he converts those end zone targets into touchdowns. Puts him over, I think Lockett is super efficient and will still be a good fantasy receiver. It'll be the touchdown that separates them. I think Metcalf is more of that prototypical, number 1 receiver, especially when you get down to the red zone. He's huge. I mean, he's a monster down there. So yeah. So I think, and then, if you look at their targets beyond those 2 guys, I know they have some tight ends there that are okay, but nothing that you're really too worried about stealing targets. I mean, it's basically Lockett and Metcalf, and Wilson's going to use those 2 guys for sure.
Yeah, I agree, AJ.
Yeah, I've been a big Lockett fan for a long time, and I've owned him on a handful of teams, and he kind of let me down finally. So I feel like I am moving more onto the Metcalf bandwagon a little bit. Burn me once, shame on you, and see you later. You're never on my team again. There's no burn me twice. So I do like Metcalf. I have snagged him up in a couple of my leagues this year. So I'm really looking forward to finally owning him and just seeing that breakout come to fruition here.
Yeah, to show how high I am on Metcalf, I actually have him in my top 12 right now. He's number 12, but he's in my top. Yeah.
That's still in the top 12.
You are bold, my friend. I mean,
I like it.
I don't have either one in the top 20. I'm not going to lie.
Wow.
I will probably move them because Sutton's moving down slowly. I haven't updated my rankings in a few weeks because I've just been waiting for this opt-out thing. but I'm moving numbers around, and I think it's looking like Sutton and people like that are gonna slide down. It's happened every rankings I've done. He's just slid down every time, just because if you were here when the ball blast was on, they we trashed Locke pretty bad, so put a bad taste in my mouth.
It was a brutal show for Drew Lock.
It was we hate Drew Lock show.
Wow.
It was fun.
Wow. I actually like Drew Lock. I'm buying him, especially in Dynasty. Redraft, not so much, but Dynasty.
Dynasty maybe, but yeah, I mean, redraft, that's the thing. It was just kind of like this year's not the year to be buying into these guys. And so,
yeah.
All right, last wide receiver question here. Back to your good old 49ers. I mean, this receiving core, let's be honest, isn't very exciting, especially with Debo going down. We don't know how long he's going to miss. It's sort of, it's just kind of an unknown right now, which is unfortunate. I mean, do you want to own any of these guys? Even Debo?
So Debo, I'm buying him at a discount, which the ADP you gave me was not at a discount. So that I wouldn't be buying him at that ADP.
I was shocked to see that. That must be
so it's possible that is the ADP, but maybe it just hasn't gotten discounted enough. I think as we get closer to the season, if he's still not ready, you'll see that come down a little bit. And if I can get him, as a bench receiver, as my receiver 4, receiver 5, I'm doing it because he will come back eventually. This, injury, he's supposed to come back for week 1. Maybe he's not fully healthy. They kind of hold him out for a few games, but he will come back and he will be, what he was last year or even better. I do think he has got that chemistry with Jimmy G, and he could be a league winner if you can get him cheap and have him as your sort of 4th, 5th receiver on your bench.
Yeah, I think I do like Brandon Ayuk coming in. I think he's going to probably be the main benefactor for any missed time for Debo. Joe, you mentioned Hurd as the sleeper pick to get him. Honestly, I like Kendrick Bourne better than I like Hurd. Partially because we've seen what Bourne can do. Hurd, had the injury last year, so he didn't really get to, come out and show what he can do. But I know he's is very touted and very very liked in that clubhouse. So I think both of those guys are all going to be worth something. But I mean, you're not drafting Bourne for the most part unless you're in really deep leagues. I think he's just going right by the wayside there. So
yeah, it's crazy with Bourne too, because as a Niners fan, I don't like Bourne for different reasons, because he had some very, very untimely drops last year that cost a couple games there. So that's why I'm kind of off of him. But at the same time, I think, what he have, like 5 touchdowns last year? I think Jimmy G kept looking for him.
Yeah. Like every other catch, it seemed like he was getting a touchdown.
It was almost like the Chris Carter thing. All he does is catch touchdowns, but literally that's all he caught, because he dropped the passes that weren't touchdowns. It seemed like.
Yeah, it's I'm not in the end zone. I don't want this.
Exactly.
Get it out of here.
Exactly. I think he had a big drop in that Seattle game that we lost, the first one in the overtime, where we could have gotten the first down. He dropped it, got picked off, and we ended up losing that game. But Brandon Ayuk's interesting because he is very cheap. You can get him late in redraft leagues. And he's a receiver that is a yak monster. He's like in the Golden Tate kind of mold, where he'll catch that ball, 1-2 line of scrimmage, and then just take it to the house, or pick up 15, 20 yards. And I think that fits what Shanahan wants to do. They've got one of the lower ADOTs in the league as far as their offense goes. They don't throw the ball down the field very much, so I think Ayuk fits the offense perfectly. As long as he can get in on the field and be a starter, I do think that he will be an interesting one. And you mentioned Jalen Hurd, and I mean, this guy is extremely versatile. I think he was a running back at one point, then he was a receiver. He's played tight end, so he's kind of all over the place. He can do it all. Yeah. So I think Shanahan likes having those kind of guys, for those gadget players, and in an offense like that, where they're going to be in the red zone often. I think Jalen Hurd has value just in touchdown upside, because of just how big he is and what he can do.
Yeah. I wouldn't say a ton about this, but so I just want to say, in my Razzball league, right? So Ayuk went in 13. you were wondering, like, I kind of wondered where, like on his name right now. I don't know why. Samuel Debo, right?
Debo.
So Debo still went in round 8,
Hmm.
which is super. I mean, I guess best ball, like you're thinking, whatever, I can sit on the guy for a few weeks, but like, still seems kind of early. Like he went ahead of Will Fuller and Mike Williams and, you know, guys like that, where like I would take them over Debo still right now, because we don't know. Like, this guy could miss half the season. He could miss the entire season. We've seen these types of injuries just ruin guys for an entire year. Ayuk went in 13, and then funny, Hurd went the pick after me in 18 that I took McKinnon, but I didn't need a receiver at that point. I was loaded with receivers, so I was just like, whatever. But I took Hurd in Scott Fishbowl super late.
Nice.
Because like I loved him last year coming in,
Yep.
and then the injuries just happened. So like I'll buy into those guys again. Like I'll give them a chance. You know, you have your injured rookie year, whatever. I'm not gonna fault you for that. So hopefully it comes, especially with the Debo injury. Like maybe he's gonna get a little more love there because he's had some work with Jimmy G. And again, I'm discounting the rookies this year. I just don't think they're gonna get enough work. No preseason. Camp can be camp, right? You know, that's fine. You can get some work with your guy, but getting work with, you know, real time games is a different ball game, guys. Like it's gonna affect these rookies big time. And the guys changing teams.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a big deal. So DeAndre Hopkins, you know, we've mentioned him before too. Like maybe we should think otherwise, having him so high. He's a pro. I get it. But getting on that same page and that timing is gonna be an issue, I think, with these guys. So you're gonna look at these teams who are sticking together like Kansas City, right? And just going like, oh, they're just gonna roll house at this point because they're already on the same page. But AJ, you want to move on with the rest of this, man?
Yeah, let's finish things out here with the tight ends. So we've got Mr. Kittles and Bits at number 2 overall. Got Tyler Higbee at 7, and then you don't have anything else until journeyman, I guess you could call him that now, Greg Olsen at 24. So Kittle, clearly one of the top tight ends in the game right now, as in the NFL game and in the fantasy game. What do you prefer? And this might be a bit of a biased question, but between Kittle and Kelsey, who's your number one?
So Kittle's my number one, and it is because I'm a Niners fan. Because I think if I look at it in a different light, Travis Kelce is used as a pass catcher almost every play, whereas Kittle is such a good blocker that there are games where he is just blocking. I mean, there's a video on YouTube, if you just Google it, George Kittle laughing on a block, like he literally blocks the guy.
Hilarious.
And is like laughing while he's doing it.
It is so good.
So yeah, I think that reason alone limits Kittle a little bit because he does love to block, and they use him in that fashion. Whereas Kelsey isn't much of a blocker; he's more of just a pass catcher. And then of course, I mean, you got Patrick Mahomes there, so I mean, obviously that gives you a huge advantage right there. And I if I'm drafting, I'm taking Kittle because I want to have my guy. But if I'm taking my bias out of there, I'm taking Kelsey right now because I do think he is the better fancy tight end right now.
All right, Joe, who you got?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the way I see it. I love both these guys. They're both phenomenal. Kelsey's probably going to give you the more consistent games. Kelsey's going to have some down games, more just so because the offense. You know, it's not just the Mahomes versus Jimmy G factor. It's the Kansas City's going to pass more than San Fran will. You know, that's going to be the truth. And so. And yeah, he brought that video. That's awesome. I've seen that video. It is fantastic. I laugh with him every single time. You feel bad for the dudes he's blocking. Like, what do you think of when you're getting like thrown to the ground by this guy and he's just laughing at you? Like, he's such a monster. So it's funny to watch. So, moving over here to the Rams, we've got Tyler Higbee, man. What an end of the year.
Yeah.
Tight end won the last 6 weeks of the season in half PPR leagues. I mean, Unbelievable. I will admit he won me 2 leagues.
Nice.
Picked him up and was like, "Yep, thank you, man." I mean, that of course was with Gerald Everett hurt or basically not playing, even if he was healthy. But Everett's supposed to be healthy this year. You can get Higbee at 7 for tight ends. Are you buying all in on that? Or are you worried that they're just gonna swap Everett back in, or maybe not swap it back in, but mix it enough to where Higbee's not going to get enough work to be even a top 10 tight end?
So I love Higbee, and I've been buying him everywhere. With that said, all the leagues that I've been drafting Higbee in, I'm not getting him at tight end 7. I'm getting him tight end 11. I like him much better there.
I won't play in your leagues.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone hates on Higbee for some reason, and I'm buying him everywhere. And I do think, that run he had last year, not only was it, great for fantasy, but it was actually historic. I think there's only 2 tight ends that have had a streak of games like he did to end the season. And you can't just discount that. You can't say, oh, well, so-and-so was hurt, so that's why he did it, because it's never been done before. 2 tight ends in history have done it. So you can't discount that by just saying the other guy was hurt. On top of that, they traded away Brandon Cooks. They're going to go with 2 receiver sets with 2 tight ends a lot more than they did last year. So that puts both Everett and Higbee on the field a little bit. So he's still going to be on the field running routes on those plays with the 2 tight end sets. And I do think Higbee is the guy that's going to be, the number one guy there as far as tight ends go. I think Everett's going to be okay, but I don't think it's going to be enough to take away from Higbee being a tight end 1.
So one of the sorry, AJ, I know usually you should jump in here, but I want to ask a follow-up question real quick. A receiver we didn't mention in the ADP because he's not being drafted, but Van Jefferson, Rams guy. Yep. I love the talent of this guy. I think he's an underneath, kind of bulky receiver, get the ball in his hands, make a play. I feel like there's a potential there where he could take away from some of the tight end work. Any thought into that?
That is possible, and I do think if we're talking dynasty, probably. But like you mentioned earlier, discounting the rookies, I think that's going to hurt him a little bit because he was a later round receiver, and he had some. I don't follow college too much, but I think he had some off the field things or something going on. So there's that to worry about as well. But I still think that Higbee, like I said, you can't discount what he did. It's a historic, run that he had there. You can't just say, well, that was just because so-and-so was hurt or because of this happened. I just think that he's good. He's that good for a reason. I do think it maybe not at that rate, for the whole season.
Right.
Good enough to be a tight end 1 because, and in this day and age, you catch, 4 or 5 touchdowns and 50 passes, you're a tight end 1 because they're just, it's pretty bad. But I love Higbee. So I'm buying him everywhere.
Yeah, I think he's a very intriguing prospect to get. And I've seen him fallen a little bit too in some of my drafts so far. And I don't really understand why, unless people are just looking at, it's because Everett got hurt. So, yeah, okay, Everett got hurt. This guy came in, but he exploded. I mean, it wasn't like he just came in and was a serviceable tight end. He was phenomenal. So you can't take that away from him at all. And I definitely think he's worth owning as a TE1 this season. All right, Joe, let's finish it out. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
I just pulled up an ADP, not ADP, but I pulled up a recent mock draft that I did just to see because I knew I got Higbee in it. I got him in the 11th round. So I've taken him 11th round. So for sure.
Yeah. All day. All right. Yeah. So the last one we got here, Mr. Olsen. So he's switched teams now for just the second time in his career. Spent 10 years in Carolina. I mean, what are we expecting from him at age 35 with multiple foot injuries and just, down production mostly because of those injuries, but other injuries to Newton and whatever. I mean, are you even interested in Olsen as a late flyer at all?
No, not at all. For purposes, I'm not interested in him at all. I do think he helps the Seattle Seahawks from an NFL standpoint. He does some good things there that, you have to respect Olsen when he's on the field, so he will draw coverage. But for fantasy purposes, especially like I said with the tight end position, there's not enough upside for me to buy into him. Now, if I'm in a deep dynasty league, sure, why not? But if we're talking redraft leagues, no interest whatsoever in Greg Olsen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna make this real easy. I'm gonna pass.
Yeah.
This guy is he's over, dude. I mean, it's can't stay healthy. As talented as he is, he's not healthy anymore. It's not fast anymore. I'm done. So
yeah. I like.
When's the last time that they've had a tight end one there in Seattle? I think Jimmy Graham did, only because he had like 13 touchdowns.
Right, it was crazy.
Yeah. But now I'm more on the Disley train. I think if he can stay healthy, then I love his upside. I mean, everything he's done when he has been on the field has been, Higbee-esque almost. And it's just like, here's a guy that needs to get on the field. I've picked him up as a late flyer in a couple of leagues too. So hoping that he can finally play and pan out.
Yeah.
But
so I just want to add one guy here who I think is he's flying under the radar, and I don't think you should draft him in a standard size league. But watch out for Dan Arnold, guys.
Yeah, I've heard
this guy is a combine monster. He was just buried in New Orleans. Got traded to Arizona last year. Had a good week 16, 17. They've got a couple of tight ends on the roster, but he's talented, and I think he can make some noise. I did draft him super late in Scott Fish Bowl. I tried to get him in Raz Bowl and didn't. Somebody else got him right ahead of me. So there's other people that know about him. So, I mean, obviously those deeper leagues like that, people are going after him. But he's one of those guys where, if you're going to wait on tight end, keep him as one of your, starred players on your waiver wire. Just go after him if he blows up or a couple weeks. That offense shouldn't be great for tight ends because it notoriously isn't. But, if there's a guy who Arians can use, it's going to be... Or not Arians. Damn it. What's his name? Kingsbury. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Kingsbury, producer in my ear. Kingsbury is going to use, then it's going to be somebody like him who's just super athletic. And that's probably why I went and got him.
Yep. Agreed 100% with that one. And I will say, on that note, with those deep guys, don't get Jordan Reed. Don't do it, guys. I know we just picked him up.
No,
just let him
know. Dwelly is so much better than Jordan Reed.
Yeah,
just let Dwelly play. Throw Jordan Reed out there as a decoy on every play, and then by the third quarter of game one, he'll be on the IR already. So,
all right, well. That is all we've got, man. Geoff, I want to thank you for coming on to the show. It was a little long, but good talking. All great information. Hope everybody enjoyed it. But before we let you go, let everybody know where they can find you on Twitter and what you got in store for the guys, man.
All right. So, follow me on Twitter at Geoff Lambert 77. It's Geoff spelled Geoff. My show is live every Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Periscope. Just search for the Armchair Fantasy Show. The website's goingfor2.com. We got 30-plus writers there writing everything from Dynasty to Redraft to Best Ball to DFS. We do it all over there. So definitely check that out. And just if you go on my Twitter handle right now, I've got a contest going on right now with it's an eliminator contest for analysts that are under 1,000 followers. We're doing a March Madness style eliminator voting poll. We're down to the Sweet 16 right now. So just go there and vote for those guys. And more importantly, give them a follow because they're under 1,000. There's some great guys out there. So give them a follow. Let's get them over 1,000 followers.
Absolutely. I miss getting a couple of my guys in. I saw the tweet 11 hours in. It was toast at that point. We're we're full. Yeah. I was like, damn. So try to get a couple of my guys nominated, but because they deserve it too. So
I'm sitting on $3.99, and I've been there for a week or so at least, and I'm who's gonna be it? Come on.
Don't be that guy that begs for followers on Twitter.
No,
man.
I don't tweet that much of
I
my
know a
own.
lot of those people.
It's mostly
good guys.
retweets anyway.
I don't know why you commit. Like it's gonna happen naturally. Just it'll get there, guys. Relax.
Yeah, I'm good with it. But
I lost like 50 followers in between football and this football season, and now I'm up again. So apparently, I'm only good for football, not baseball.
When we don't have a baseball season, it's kind of hard to gain followers.
We were still talking baseball. There was supposed to be a baseball season at one point. I'm still dropping followers. But anyway, all right, Geoff. Thanks for coming on, man. We'll have to do it again soon. So talk to you later, man.
All right.
Thanks, man.
All right, AJ. I successfully went through 2 of these tonight, so feeling good. Let's.
I couldn't tell.
By the way, Jeff Hicks, our producer, is bragging that he's got more followers than you, AJ.
Whatever, man.
Kick him wise down.
That's awesome.
Anyway. That's like just your opinion, man.
It's just your opinion. AJ, maybe you should take a 3-minute break during work and you tweet something during the day as he cracks open another beer, like fuck you guys.
Just get one of those schedulers. You can just schedule your tweets to go off for the next day.
Yeah, exactly. I just tweet every other minute a picture of sandwiches and goldfish that I stepped on, and
absolutely
the food goldfish. Hey, I wouldn't step on real goldfish. Sick bastards.
Anything gets it going. So, all right, man. Well, that's all I got. We will close it out there. Jeff, cue the music, bro. Don't worry, bro. Yelling at us on the microphone. I mean, AJ's got to chug his beer during the music, so you got to let us know.
I can't hear it anymore, so I guess I just chug. I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
How long did we run? I can't tell on my screen over here.
Oh, yeah.